Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Human Services Committee for February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, one and all. It being 9:01, let's call the meeting to order with roll call.
Allen,
Garcia. Present.
Gripe,
Here.
Lewis,
Who's here?
Barbara's here with a remote request if possible.
thank you. Linder, Surges.
Surge is present.
You have an in-person quorum.
Remote attendance requests. Everybody okay with Mr. Tarver online?
Mhm.
Yep. Mr. Tarver, you are welcome. I have a motion for the approval of minutes.
Allen requests unanimous consent of our minutes of January 15th, 2025.
All in favor?
Aye.
You. I see no one here for public comments, nor do I believe we have anyone online for public comment. Okay. Monthly financial reports are on file if anybody has any questions on that. Item 7A, Jamie or Christine. We'll go through the Department of Human Resource Management monthly reports.
Okay, just starting with the health insurance, we're doing well and on track with our health insurance. Health insurance fund is strong, and so when we plan rates for next year, we're going to take that into consideration and use that money to keep rates low for next year. So that's looking good. We've been doing a great job estimating now that we've been doing it a couple of years. We're staying right on top of it. Invoices within tolerance for this month. Are there any questions regarding that? Okay, next report is the staff applicants and staff changes. Really no change. It's been fairly consistent since the end of the pandemic. Lots of ins and outs. Hiring has been good. Lots of applicants for our open positions. And in the end is the workers' comp and liability reports. Again, everything is within tolerance and the program's going well. We did bring on our new risk manager, and next month we will bring forward some plans and how we're planning to approach that risk management.
For the committee's information, I did have a conversation with Jamie saying now that the board has authorized us to bring on this risk management position, that we want to lay out some metrics that by which we will evaluate the success or failure of the program, how we might measure that success, how the individual's doing. Again, this is I don't want to say that this is new to us, but the position in earnest is new. And we just want to put some guidelines on that, on how we might approach that and make sure that we're doing what needs to be done. I don't want anybody to look back and say, you brought somebody on and look, you trended in this direction or that direction. No, we need something that's measurable with goals. So, and I think we said we'd get to that next month. Is that fair?
Right. I want to make sure he has time to become familiar with the county and the processes and to be a part of establishing those metrics, which I think are going to rely heavily on those preventable type claims. So, trips and falls and things like that, that we can impact. There's always going to be a series of claims based on what we do that are not preventable, such as injuries to officers that occur while they're performing their duties and things like that, that aren't really preventable. But we really want to look at those that are accidents that could be prevented if a good program was in place. So we've kind of tried to track that as we go along so we can look at the number of preventable claims and hopefully start seeing a fairly quick decrease in that number.
And for those of you that keep track of my actions on the board, I am a stickler to say, what budget line item is this coming from? How is this being paid? Where is this money? What happens? And I am even more critical when it comes to my lack of understanding between grant funded obligations and general fund obligations. So I asked Jamie point blank, where is this gentleman being funded? And he comes out of the insurance liability fund. Is that correct?
Yes. So the insurance liability fund is a separate tax levy. So it is property tax funded, but it's funded to insurance liability. The idea being that the reduction in the total cost of claims being more than enough to fund his position little prevention is worth a pound of cure. So
This has in my opinion, the goal here is to not only make this a null expense to the county, but actually a savings to the county. And Jamie, that's one of the directives that I would like to set forth in whatever matrix we're proposing here. If we were at X and we've now added an expense to that, is the savings justified in having that person brought on? And maybe in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, do we look at this and say, wow, that was a great thing? And I know Sonia and I from the insurance world will say, of course you need loss control. But in general, was it successful, and what is the appropriate measures to do that? So if you could help us put those guidelines in place, that would be great.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jamie on any of the reports?
No, go ahead. It was
Um,
for you.
I just wanted to toss into the mix that as we hire someone and is learning the drill and learning the county, would it be appropriate to just check in with the guy who's been at the Forest Preserve for a number of years? Not that our paths cross all the time, but there might be some crossover, and you don't have to invent as much of the wheel. Just a suggestion.
Absolutely. Forest Preserve, as well as other counties, every other county surrounding us has a risk manager as well. And I think we've got good relationships with those departments and those other counties. And I think tapping into those resources is important. We never want to reinvent the wheel. If someone's doing it and doing it well, we're happy to poach their ideas, and they're usually happy to let us.
I believe his name is Chuck Meisner over there, and we started him part-time. And then as we realized the value of the role, then he became full-time. I think my memory is shot. I don't know how many years, but some years he's been there. So just an additional resource in our lives.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Deb, we spend so much effort to create these two silos, being the Forest Preserve and the county board. And it just amazes me that we don't interact to the level that I think could be so beneficial to us. Oh, don't cross that line. Don't do that. I don't know. It seems to me like we could learn a lot from each other if we would just play in the sandbox and
I think we're neurotic because we get criticized sometimes for wearing, the county board members get criticized for wearing both hats. So I think there are lots of instances where we're real judicious about trying to make sure that we're thinking separately. And maybe that gets in the way of the
I can
good
understand that. No, I
that we would
appreciate
like
that.
to accomplish.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Gripe, you had a comment?
Sonia?
No,
No, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things, one minor one, the tuition reimbursement report is one of the first one. Just curious, departments, county board, the sub-department is Riverboat, which just caught my eye. Love tuition reimbursement, but I was curious kind of what classes we see from people, if, the guidelines for what's reimbursable.
We have a full policy regarding what is reimbursable under tuition reimbursement, and we have a whole process that we go through to evaluate those. So there's a variety depending on which department people work in. It does need to be somehow related to their position at the county, and it is up to their department head to make that evaluation. So, I've seen several times people working in the judiciary type system, whether it be the state's attorney, the clerk, or probation, getting a degree to become a probation officer. And so then they will stay within the county and move into a probation officer position or something like that. So we do see a variety, but it does have to be signed off by their department head that it is relevant to county employment before it comes to our office. So we do see a huge variety. It doesn't have to be pertinent to their current position, just pertinent to county employment.
And obviously, can and should read that policy, but is there any requirement about what you get reimbursed for and how long you have to stay with the county?
Yes, there is. That's in there as well. And there is also, you have to get a grade of C or better, and it reimburses after the person passes the class. So they do have to pass the class with a grade C or better to be eligible for that reimbursement. And there is a repayment if they leave county employment too soon after they finish.
Okay. And an unrelated question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Wait, before you leave that, John, I don't know the answer to this. How big is that budget? Is that
25,000, 50?
50,000.
$50,000?
Funded by the riverboat.
It is all funded by Riverboat, yes.
So here's the unrelated question. And maybe there's a better time here, but I've been touring different departments, which is like really fun. I got some comments from Sheriff's Department, not the sheriff, but people I was talking to there that had experienced the EAP program and weren't terribly excited about the customer service. Not, it had nothing to do with us. It was that the people on the other end. So I'd be glad to help, investigate that a little bit, but they were saying the quality of the product offered to us was not what they would have imagined.
We did just change that as of the first of the year.
Okay, good.
So there was some feedback on the previous vendor, so we did just change that vendor. So I would want to look into those and see if that was our previous vendor or our current vendor. I've gotten some good feedback from a couple of people that I know that have reached out to the current vendor, but again, that just started January 1, so I don't know.
It's probably old, so.
John, we were in agreement.
Yes,
We were in agreement with those people. So,
yes. Thank you.
anyone else? Okay. Compliance monthly training reports. Did we just go through those? Is
That's
that-
just, yeah, that's the mandatory sexual harassment prevention training. It's always great now that people are used to it. A lot of people get in there and do it right away, but that's not due until August.
Okay.
So
Any old business? New business. I have a resolution on here that's, I want to put up just for discussion so that we can talk about it a bit. So I'm looking for a resolution repealing 22-439, authorizing the combining of the position of the Executive Director of Information Technologies and the Executive Director of Building Management. And I'm looking for a second just to open some dialogue.
Lewis, a second.
Lewis seconds. Thank you. I moved it, Surges. So there was a few conversations that have come my way, kind of poignantly saying, do your job, man. And to which I kind of said, I'm not sure what you're referring to. And Ms. Juby and I had some conversations back 6 months ago, trying to figure out what the charge of each committee was. And are we staying within our lanes and what are we doing? And a few years ago, we took the time back in 2022 to combine what I thought was an experiment to kind of see what we were doing. We were having some problems with this department. And we kind of said, listen, we have a strong leader in that department. Can we combine these and see where this might go? From that, I don't know that we've had any feedback saying this was a successful venture or this was a step in the wrong direction. But I did have feedback coming to me saying, what is this committee's role with it? And so I tried to pull as much information as I could. And this is going to transcend two committees and Mr. Kaios is here from the other committee. But I'm just going to read what it says under administration. This committee shall have jurisdiction over departments of information technologies and building management, clearly in that realm, including the approval and oversight of the revenue and expense budget, capital programs, capital projects, purchaser contracts, commodities, and county vehicles. Then if I go down to human services, this committee shall have jurisdiction over matters pertaining to county personnel, including but not limited to the job classification, schedule, and pay plan of the county, and shall have jurisdiction over the insurance coordination and payroll of Human Resources Department, blah, 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 blah. Then if I go down to executive, The structure for the appointment of department heads and adjustments of salaries of department heads and other employees falls within executive. So when I start looking at some of this and somebody asks me or makes the comment, do your job, man. I'm not sure what job people are referring to. So we've had some challenges in that particular arena with building management. We've tried to put some things in there, some patches in there. We've restructured to some degree, but not to the full extent. Roger is here, who I respect immensely, and quite honestly, I will tell you, Roger's never not taken my call, whether it was personal or professional, to do here with the county. Roger has always taken that call and given me solid sage advice, or I wouldn't have called him to begin with. But the question is, the problems that we were having in that department, have they been corrected? Have we addressed them? Are we moving forward? I'm not sure that that is this committee's responsibility. I think that's the admin's committee's responsibility. But if somebody is suggesting that the combination or the, recension of that falls here, I don't know that I agree with that. So I brought this up last month to just say, hey, we need this on the radar for discussion. I put a resolution on here today and equally said to Savannah or whomever at the county board office, put it on the admin one as well. I mean, this is not a power play. We are not against each other. We work as a team, but we should be having a conversation saying, did we hit the goals that we were setting out to do? Have we achieved what we needed? There was a little bit of a cultural situation going on there with some staff people that I think have since been removed. How did we replace those people? Are we in a good shape, and did the experiment work, or do we want to look at it differently? And I'm here in all earnestness saying, if this committee says, hey, this is in the purview of what the language says we should be working on, then I'm happy to roll up my sleeves and work on it. If this committee says, shame on you, this should be going to the admin committee, this is their department, they should be doing it, I am happy to, spell out whatever I need to and bring it to Mr. Kaios and say, I would never say, here, this is your problem, have a great day. I am willing to roll up my sleeves and say, this is what has come through our department. I think we should be addressing this differently. So all I want to do is open the dialogue so that the people who made those comments, I can say very politely, we've addressed it. Thank you very much. Now sit down and be quiet. So that's where I'm at. And I just want to open that up for conversation if anybody has any feelings in any way. And I will, of course, begin that with Mr. Kaios representing the admin, and then I will go to Ms. Lewis right behind me. So
Well, I'm not on this committee.
I know that, sir, but you are the chair of the other committee, and I respect you enormously.
And
So,
I do believe that that is the purview of the admin committee. I don't see it as, at least the way I interpret the language that you have referred to there is that while human services has a valuable role to play, I don't believe it is in selecting or dividing that positions, more or less a HR. If it's that position, then they get paid this amount, as opposed to actually directing this, which I believe this resolution refers to, is to actually splitting back the directors of the building management IT separately. So now, is this resolution the thing we should go with? I think that we shouldn't discount it. Maybe at some point, or definitely at some point, we should take it up. And that's why it's on the admin committee next hour, next half hour. And I think that there's a lot of discussion. I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about not only this resolution, but where it fits in. The information that you referred to, there was I see that there's about 5 different things that came out of a 9-month investigation and a 3 or 4 hour executive session. that really convoluted a lot of the argument. And I think a lot of that is still carrying over into discussions we're having now.
Agreed.
So what I would like to do is refer this, what I'd like to have this committee do is refer, and this is up to you guys, because this is your committee. I think that we will begin addressing it today, because it's on our committee. And unfortunately, we didn't get to it last month, because it was, well, the end of the year and the beginning of the year. I think we're at a disadvantage. We have a couple of members on our committee that haven't had the history of the full 9 months and the 4 hours of closed session. So what I would like to do in our committee is to revisit that, whether it's in, that's partly why our state's attorney is here. If it's a personnel thing, we should go to that, into closed session and address that, or at least educate our individuals, because I don't think it's fair to ask them. I think we've got, well, I don't think you're on our committee, are you? But you'll be present, and I think it's valuable for you to get that information. We have 2 new people on our committee, so that would be my suggestion. You guys can do what you wish. I think that whether we take this up right now, this actual resolution of splitting the job back up again, or whether we actually do a education and research and provide the information for our new board members and then take this up, I think that's definitely worth the look. It's not something I want to bury, because the question, obviously, as you've said, has come up. So I think it's really important that we do address it. I want to make sure that all the information is out and everybody has on my committee, and actually everybody who wants to sit in on the admin. I advise you, like, especially Mr. Gripe, since he's new, to sit in on that. Hopefully it's not a monster meeting. I'd like to keep it to like 2 hours. I think somebody's got to go. But I will say that this was a 9-month investigation and about 3 hours or 4 hours of closed session that kind of boiled down to this. It came to this resolution, which is brought up, and hopefully we'll be able to take care of this, do the education, find out where we're at on these 5 or 6 items, whether they're something that the state's attorney is doing, whether it's something that we refer back to human resources, and but we start from the base, because it got really convoluted. We got this just after the election, then we went into December and January, and so I think it's
Agreed. There's no,
and
we're trying to be as professional as could be. We
Sure.
just don't want it to fall off the plate.
Right.
And, but Chris, I did get a snark back, we had a long committee of the whole yesterday where several times comments were made comparing us to other counties and our deficiencies for not being like the other counties. And to me, that, my question comes in, well, what's best practices? How do we compare? If you're going to compare us against the other counties, do the other counties have this same routine that we have here, the same layout, the same platform, the same design? If it's not the way we do it in other counties, then don't come to this meeting on Wednesday or Thursday and say, strawberries, and then come to the next meeting the next morning and say bananas, and, let's all be on the same page on how we're doing that. So, and that's simply my goal, is to
And-
say, and if I can ask anything else, and then I will, Ms. Lewis, I will come to you. If I could ask anything else, I would ask that, because all of this stuff eventually percolates through to human services, I would ask that Jamie or a representative from that team be included in whatever you're doing, so that they can give input. And again, one of my goals is that our human resources department becomes that partner in helping to attract talent. I don't, Deb, I used the word silo a few minutes ago. I don't understand how we've become this silo where every department we have or office feels that the responsibility to hire their team is just theirs. When, in my opinion, the human resources department should be the first stop to say, this is what our needs are. How could you help us make that happen? And we should have a set panel, a set platform, a methodology. This is the model we use. And Jamie or a member of your staff or team, whoever that is, say, here we go, let's work together. Let's make sure we're sharing the resources to make that happen. And that also goes into the complaints or the concerns that you might get. We need to make sure that you're capable of, that's not the right word, that you have a mechanism or an opportunity to share that back with the department head or the committee to say, this is what we're seeing. I mean, this is just what we're seeing. This, we should all be aware of this so we can kind of tweak or do what we need to do. But for them to not be at that table is a little bit silly in my opinion, and I would just hope that we could embrace that. So, Ms. Lewis?
So I think 20 minutes ago,
Anita?
Anita, Mike,
sorry, I always tease Cliff about his long-winded.
Just talk more about it tonight.
Yes, yes, I know. So I think your question that you first posed was, do we feel like this should be under our group, or should it be an admin, or should it be somewhere else? I think this should be under admin, because what we're talking about is we combined these two groups together and we're asking, did we make the right decision? Is it working? Admin knows that because this whole group, all these people report under admin, they're the ones that work with them all the time. We don't, we sit in on admin meetings, and to me, it seems like it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it's not my committee. This committee, however, I think that we really, I've been on this committee 6 years, and we have a lot of, as you call it, heavy lifts. We have a lot of policies and procedures and things that really, really still need to get cleaned up. And this 9-month investigation and all these hours we put in has led to some issues in our procurement and our compliance, and just our, overall making sure things are going well there. And I think this committee would be better to stay in that lane and get our ducks in a row on our policies and how we do all that, and let that committee actually work with these two departments to make sure it's working well. That's only my opinion.
I don't disagree. I just want a unanimous consensus
Yeah.
and not people throwing barbs at me. So,
You want unanimous from this board?
Yeah.
oh, just from this committee,
This is committee.
just from this committee, sir.
I'd like to make a motion, and then you can talk, but I'd like to make a motion to table this here and give it to admin.
Can you hold the table, because that kills conversation for Mr.
I'll
Gripe? And
hold it for
then
1 second.
would it be okay with that?
1 second.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So being newer, I get to ask fun questions. So when I read this, regardless of which committee might take this up, this suggests to me that something's broken. And this is a potential fix for that break. And I'm kind of curious, because of who I've been talking to and what I hear, I'm seeming to miss what's broken. And maybe somebody can help me understand here why any committee would take this up if something isn't broken. So and I guess his history being, it used to be 2, it became 1, and I'm curious what committee or how it got to be 1. So my 2 questions for anybody here, Jamie, you, anybody, would be, what's broken? And the second question is, how did this originally get combined when it used to be 2 that we're now thinking about making it 2 again?
Respected colleague, could I invite you for a cup of coffee or a slice of pizza to discuss that offline rather than in committee? It is lengthy, and
Mm-hmm.
there's shades of gray there that, it probably, it would take a while to kind of get that. And then if you had specific questions, you could come back.
I suppose that's okay, but I guess if we're going to consider something like this, it kind of begs the question currently.
Agreed. It
To
will
some
be in his
extent.
committee and yes.
Yeah, I would say, if it's in our committee, but by all means.
Yeah. Ms. Juby?
I think Ms. Allen had a question before. I'm not on the committee, but I would like to make a comment before Ms. Lewis makes her tabling remark.
Right now,
You're on the committee.
we give you the floor, Ms. Juby.
So So this originated in Human Services to combine the two positions.
Wait a minute. I don't know that that's true. Jamie,
Um,
is that a fact?
it originated on the back minutes of
Your agenda.
where you follow it.
Okay.
Back in wherever you go back to March of 22 or wherever it started. But
And that wasn't a challenge. That was just a
no,
matter of
no,
fact.
it's
So
not.
John,
I
just to,
went back and I
Yeah.
read everything
Thank you.
because I wasn't here when this happened. So I wanted to get every piece of information I could.
and maybe that's the reason why somebody's throwing barbs at me
Okay,
saying you
so
initiated it, so you shouldn't do it.
Let me finish with what I was going to add. I think that the purpose was just to get the conversation going. It wasn't for Human Services to actually make the decision that this should be, but it was to follow committee structure. And committee structure would be, because it's a potential personnel issue, it would start in Human Services and then be directed to the committee that would then govern that. And so talking about tabling it to me is moot, because the whole point was to get the conversation and it's already on someone else's agenda. So it's moving through the committee structure. If you vote to move it forward, it's already at that committee. If you vote to table it, it's still at that committee. So I don't understand why we're talking about it, because it's already on the next agenda. So we're following committee structure, which is what we have to govern how we move things forward.
So Leslie, I'm just a little confused. Would the committee structure in this case, the committee structure, in my opinion, would be from Human Services to exec, not laterally to admin.
No,
That's why I think we're discussing table to let admin pick it up.
I think it would go to admin because it's actually those two positions report to admin.
John,
then
give us
that would
some
go to
sage
exec.
advice there.
That's why I wanted to table it, because I don't think the discussion about whether this position is working or not working should happen here. I think it should happen at admin. And I think we're wasting our time here discussing it. So I want to table it here, knowing that we are going to get in a much longer discussion on it in an hour at admin. So that's why I wanted to table it in this one.
It doesn't matter which one it starts in, it's going to have to go to both. So however you want to do it, if you would rather it start in admin, if it passes admin, I would say Human Services would have a very good argument to say it also needs to go to them. If they want to waive it, that's a different story. But generally speaking, when I look at 247, I would tell you both admin and Human Services would have jurisdiction, which means it would need to go to both. I think there's a separate question of whether it should even be in standing committees at all. It is an executive director position. Appointments, stuff like that related to executive director positions are supposed to be an executive. However, upon looking at the language in executive, it doesn't quite fit because it's not really an appointment. So
Welcome to my world.
yes. So what I would tell you as kind of my best reading of it is what you're doing right now is probably the right thing. The question of whether it should start in admin or start in Human Services is really probably the question, because it's going to have to go to both.
But I don't think we're in a position, I'm not at least, to say that this is working or not. That's up to admin. So I would prefer it starts in admin, and then if they need to send it back to us next month.
And did you have a motion for that?
Did. She already moved.
I
don't
wanted
know
to
what
table it here.
Is there a second? Motion to table and admin will pick it up.
I'll second.
Any discussion? There's no discussion on a table.
No discussion on table.
Call the vote.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Garcia,
Garcia, I.
Gripe,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Tarver,
Carver, yes.
Surges.
Surges abstain.
Chicken.
I just don't, yeah. I mean,
Tabled.
Valentine's Day, man.
Yeah.
We love you. Jump in. Water's fine.
in the report, replace reports on file. Miss Allen? Ms. Garcia seconds? No discussion, call the roll on that.
Voice, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No need for executive session that I'm aware of. Mr. Gripe?
May I ask a question of Mr. Frank?
You have the
Mr.
floor,
State's
sir.
Attorney.
We almost beat it out, man.
So the reason I voted no is because I'm terribly unsure. Doesn't matter, it passed, but so does it come back here? Does it not need to come back here? So admin does their thing.
So,
John, could you define what a table means?
yeah, I mean, essentially you just, well, the legal versus the practical is it's just done. If it'll ever come back up again, it'll be a new agenda item.
Okay.
John, which is different than John and John, which is different than postponing. She just motioned to table, which removes it permanently.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it would never come back to this committee.
But-
unless it's new.
You could have a new one.
Could have a new one.
Same thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, postpone is like within the same meeting, tabling is to kind of,
Yeah.
technically, we should have moved it, but it doesn't matter because it's already on the agenda item, so it's the same net effect. Whether you table it, whether you postpone it, unless you intend to bring it back the same meeting, it basically kind of ends it.
Okay.
To answer kind of the separate question, which was what happens now, if admin approves it, normal course would bring it back to human services, then it would go to executive, presuming it's always passing. Or alternatively, and I don't know if Madam Chair was stepping up to say that she could just take it into exec, but that is an option where if admin doesn't want to deal with it and everybody just wants to deal with it at exec, it can be taken directly to exec through either the chairman's authority or going through the normal course, which is what I've just outlined.
All right. So to reiterate, normal course is goes through admin. If admin creates something new, it comes back.
Yeah, so normal course is it must touch every standing committee with jurisdiction. Doesn't matter the order, doesn't matter as long as it touches and gets passed by every jurisdictionally appropriate standing committee.
Thank you.
John, I'm sorry. So just, I'm so confused. I'm so confused.
Join the club.
So going back to admin,
Mhm.
we talk about it. And because the two committees in some way are linked to the decision, it can come back, right?
It should come back
Okay.
unless it gets, so the way to get something to exec is to go through the other standing committees, or the chairman in her discretion can take something directly onto exec or even directly onto county board. That's kind of an exception is the way you should think of it.
So Ms. Garcia, if I could, we wouldn't want to go straight to exec with this without somebody identifying what the problem is, if there is one at all, and creating a solution or discussion within committee. If somebody pointed that here, I'm going to address it, but I don't believe here. I think it should be in admin. We've done our due diligence. We've taken a vote. We've removed it. We have discussed it. It is going to admin to be reviewed. That's, in my opinion, the correct steps. For Madam Chair to just simply throw it in executive. Yeah.
Question, when it goes to admin, that means admin needs to go ahead and look and make sure that
If
the
they so
changes
choose.
were correctly, have the models, have the systems and the process in there, and come and say, it did work. We have this implementation, it did work, this is what happened. Is that has to be the
I
result?
think what they're hearing
That's
from.
what I would say.
Yeah, yeah, that's accurate. I think what we're saying is through this department, we've had some concerns that have arisen from employees, from staff, from procedurals. I don't think that's our jurisdiction. I think it's the other committees. But this is the process by which we formally acknowledge that and then move it forward. And hopefully I have been nothing but a gentleman on this and straightforward, cards up. With Roger, Madam Chair, Jamie, Chris, I mean, we can't do this any more transparently than we are. And that was my goal.
And by doing, I'm so sorry.
Oh, stop, yeah.
Just, I'm sorry.
Please.
By doing this, will that stop the people that comes and say, we're not doing our job?
Oh, I don't know, but
No.
it will give me
No,
the piece of,
Somebody's
yeah,
gonna say you're not.
you figure out how to do that and let me know. But it will allow me to sleep at night and say, we address this earnestly. And if there's something that we feel strongly about, then we should be part of that conversation. And the biggest thing for me in this was to make sure that somebody from that department is invited to sit in with this department and have communication. Otherwise, we're in silos, silent, and that's not good for any organization, in my opinion. I'm sorry, Mr. Roth, and then Ms. Gomes, and then we'll take a motion for adjournment.
I think Roth here. I think you did what you needed to do and you did it well. And I think we need to close out and let Mr. Caius address it in admin.
Sure.
And where it goes from there will be decided in admin. Because depending on the outcome, it may have to go to finance too. But that's not our job here to do. It's at admin.
Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity for everybody else. So as I understand this, we're going to bring into admin at 10:30. It's on the agenda. And then if I may address Mr. Caius, we will then have that educational piece. So for those here now looking for that educational piece, stick around, I guess.
I don't know that we're prepared.
Yeah, so I guess
history
when you're looking for the history, I guess, then
Give us
we'll have that educational piece in an hour. Whatever, Bill.
Deb?
I just wanted to toss into the mix that I think some of the problem here is that we don't talk to each other enough.
At all.
And we do have some new people who don't have some background. And I wanted to mention that when I first came on the board, there was kind of an amorphous entity called Building and Grounds. And there were, you know how there's this horrible thing about how roofers drink? And so you have your roof is being replaced on your house and you're always concerned about your insurance because if some of those people drink and they fall off your roof, who's going to get sued?
Hey,
And,
Sonia.
and you want to be covered on that. Well,
You've met my nephew then.
unfortunately, I think that falls into other trades and other elements, and some of those were here.
It's my side job.
So
Deb.
people worried about building maintenance, that aluminum siding would be taken off of something or other recyclable materials, and they would be turned into cash and it would go into someone's pocket. Or that there would be some drinking on the job, or there would be some napping on the job. And it was just this amorphous thing of problems. And that was 23 years ago when I was fortunate enough to be elected to this board. So I feel like I have seen 23 years of trying to address that problem, and it's gotten incrementally better. And then we were lucky enough to have a professional take over the problem and turn building maintenance into a professional entity, which is what has happened now. And I think it would be helpful for all of us if we had some more of that history and some more of the processes. I am always intrigued to listen to admin to hear how there's a weaving together of IT and building management, because IT is everywhere and it's in all of our buildings. And every time you want to fix something, or somebody needs a new phone, or we get a new employee and we have to do a computer, well, that means drilling into a wall in order to make all of that happen. So it's been kind of, in my view, a really lucky situation where we had someone in the person of Roger, who was able to take these entities and meld them together in, I think, a very efficient way. But it's really interesting for all of us to learn about that, how he thought it through and how he made it happen. And so I was hoping that that would come out of this conversation.
Next
Stay
conversation.
tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stick around, part two.
So Sonia, did you have a motion?
To adjourn.
Adjourn. We go. Mr. Gripe seconds.
Second.
There we go. All